In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a Converse sneaker with custom graphics on it using Adobe Illustrator. So the first thing we need to do is set up our file. So we're going to go to File, New in Illustrator and choose Print, choose Letter, then choose the horizontal landscape format, choose RGB color, and keep the raster effects high. Then we're going to go to File, Place, and you're going to place the JPEG of that sneaker that I gave you. So just click on your artboard, and once it loads, and it will place it on your computer or on your screen. Then you want to go to where the rotate tool is and click where the other nested tools are and choose reflect. Then click reflect and choose vertical to flip it the other way. So I want you to open your layers tab, and we're going to make this our template layer. So you're going to click template in the name area and then double click on that layer and choose template in the selection there and choose dim images and make it 60% and say OK. Now click the plus button at the bottom of your layers tab to make a new layer, and we're going to name this one color, make another new layer and name this one outline. Now get your pen tool and choose a black stroke with no fill. And make it about 3 or 4 or 5, make it 5 points. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and I'm going to go around the edge of the shoe and get the outline that goes around the shoe. Don't worry about making it perfect. You can always go back in and edit any of your points afterwards. Also, don't worry about going around the tops of the shoelaces. Just get the outline of the shoe. So you can use your direct selection tool to go back and clean up any points that you're not happy with. When you're done cleaning up any of your path that you want to fix, click off to the side of it to unselect it, and then go and get your paintbrush tool. So you're going to trace around where the shoelaces go, but you need to make this thicker, so make the paintbrush have about a 2-point thickness. And then once again, you can use the direct selection tool to move the endpoints where you want. You can also hold the Alt or Option key and drag on something that you've drawn to copy it, and then that way you can just correct it each time without drawing it from scratch. It works best if you click off to the side before you try to click on a new one. So I'm going to open my stroke panel here, and I'm going to make sure that I have rounded corners on here. I already do, but I want to show you in case you don't. So open up the options on the stroke and set it like this so that you have curved ends. And then you can continue drawing the shoelaces by just dragging Alt or Option on each shoelace and moving it to the next part, and then moving the points so it fits where you want them to fit. So continue to do that on the whole shoe. Now we're going to get the pen tool and draw the inner shoelaces, but this time instead of having a rounded edge, we want flat edges on these shoelaces. I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to bump that up to 11 and then go over here in the stroke options and notice how I click the flat end instead of the rounded end. Once again, you can hold your Alt or Option key on something that you've already drawn and drag a copy of it, and use your direct selection tool to clean up any things that you want to change about the copied shoelace. So now I'm going to get the pen tool and draw the top of the sole of the shoe. And I'm going to make that a little bit thinner, put it down to 6 points, and I'm going to round the edges of those paths. Continue drawing the outline of all the color breaks that you're going to see in the shoe. So basically I'm just separating the tongue from the side of the shoe, because the tongue of the shoe is going to be a little bit darker color. And when you're done, you need to click on the direct selection tool or the selection tools to get out of the pen editing mode. You can also click the direct selection to move any points and clean up any areas that you may have not done as neatly as you want to. So we're going to go to our Layers tab and go off to the right of Outline and Alt or Option and drag down to the color, and that made a duplicate onto the color layer. So we want to select everything on that color layer. So use your selection tool to draw a box around everything, and then go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. Then you want to go to Properties, then go down to Pathfinder and click on that first button called Unite, and that united all your paths into one thing. So then you want to right click on this new thing that you've made and choose Release Compound Path. Then get your direct selection tool and click on the very far outline of the whole shoe and press delete. Now let's go to Layers and turn off the template, and you can see you have all the fill areas. Everything's filled with black right now, so you're just going to click on each part of the shoe and change it to the color that you want. So now we're going to turn the outline layer back on for a minute, unlock it, and then we're going to click on all the shoelaces, and we're going to go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke again. Now we want to fill the shoelaces with white and give them a black stroke, and go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. Let's bump up the weight on the stroke to be a little bit thicker. Somewhere around 4 looks good. And then make sure you round the end caps and corners. And then get your direct selection tool and clean up any areas that you see that are not as clean as what you might want. We're going to add some details to the shoe. So let's turn off the color layer, make a new layer. We can call this one Threads. And we're going to draw a line where the stitching goes on the shoe. Using the pen tool, do the same thing as you did on the outline of the shoe and just trace one of the stitch marks on the shoes. And then we're going to go click on your selection tool and then go to where the color is and say no fill, and you want a white stroke, and we're going to click dash line. Make it say 5-point dash and a 5-point gap. Actually, let's make it a little bit smaller than that on the point size. I would say make it a 2-point weight. So the weight is 2 points. And you can just hold the Alt or Option key and click and drag to make a copy of that same one. And then click off of it. And then let's get the pen tool and finish drawing the rest of the threads on the shoes. All right, now drag that thread layer behind the outline. You can turn on the color layer for a second to see how it looks. And then while you're on the thread layer, let's draw the eyelets for the shoelaces. So draw a circle and then click on the gradient color picker. And we don't want the stroke to be gradient, so say none for that. What we want the fill to be a gradient. When the gradient window pops up, choose the radial gradient, and let's move this color bar at the bottom of the gradient editor so that you have white on the right and black on the left. Something like that. Maybe move this over a little bit. Yeah, make it so it's black on either end and then white in the middle. I think that looks pretty good. Now move this first eyelet that you made. I hold the Alt or Option key to make a copy of it while I'm dragging. And let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a black stroke as well. Maybe a 3-point stroke, and let's just delete that one. And then hold the Alt or Option key on the one that you do like. Let's make it 2 points actually for the stroke. And then hold the Alt or Option while you're dragging. Notice how I'm doing every other one. I'm going back to the first one I drew because if you're dragging one that's selected, you might accidentally warp it. So continue doing that. And then you can go back with the direct selection tool and just kind of make them smaller if they need to be smaller, or move them, and then do those two at the bottom. So now I'm going to get the pen tool and I'm going to draw these little shadows that are in the sole of the shoe, the little details. So use your pen tool to do that. It's obviously not supposed to be a gradient, so I'm going to fix that after I close this path. So click Stroke, None, and click Fill, and just give it like a gray fill. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. And then I'm going to draw like this little rubber thing that goes on the front end of Converse shoes. It has a texture in it, but we're going to do something a little bit different there for now. Just leave it solid for now. All right, so it's looking pretty good. You're going to need to change the color on that gray a little bit if it's not showing up. Same with the shadow on the bottom. I'm going to darken that gray up so that I can see it on my gray sole. Then I'm going to get the direct selection tool and I'm going to click the inside of this shoe, the tongue area, and make it a red color instead of gray. I'm going to make it a little bit of a darker red though, because it's going to be a shadow in there. And then click off of that when you're done. So now I'm going to show you how to do the graphics on the shoe. So what we need to do that, we're going to make it so the graphics only show up on the red color or whatever color you're doing. So we're going to get our selection tool, click on it, and go to Edit, Copy, or Control C. And now we have a copy of it in our clipboard. We're going to make a new layer. You're going to call this layer Clip. And then you're going to go to lock all the layers except for Clip, by the way. Then go to Edit, Paste in Place, and it will paste a copy of it in the exact same place. Then go to your Layers tab and choose Make Clipping Mask. Now everything that we draw on top of this clipping mask will only show up inside of that area that you made a clipping mask. So feel free to try any design you want. I'm kind of doing this Eddie Van Halen guitar pattern, but I want you to try, you can do anything you want in here. I want you to actually do a couple different versions of it, but this is really easy. Once you get your clipping mask, you can just draw away and it'll all stay inside of the area that you have designated. If you needed to edit anything, you can still move things around and it'll still stay inside the clipping mask. Now I'm going to tell you how to do the shadows and highlights. So we're going to make another layer and put it on top of everything else. I'm going to call this one Shadows, and I'm going to get the paintbrush tool, and I'm just going to paint these little half lines inside the shoelaces. Click on it and make it no fill, but make the stroke kind of a gray color because it's going to be a shadow on the bottom of the shoelace. And then in the transparency window, which you can find under Window if it's not open, I'm going to put it on multiply and make the opacity 50 or 60%. And then once again, I'm going to draw little shadows under all the shoelaces. And since it's on multiply, it's just kind of darkening them. You can put like a shadow under the shoe, on the bottom of the shoe. Maybe make the heel have a little bit of a shadow on it, in the back of the shoe. All right, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go on the color layer and I'm going to lock everything except for the color layer. And I'm going to draw a circle. Once again, I'm going to fill that with a gradient, kind of like we did on the shoe eyelets. I'm going to make it a radial gradient. And I want it to be white on the right and black on the left. And kind of scoot the little triangle over to the right so there's a lot of black and just white on the edges. Then get your selection tool, we can close out of that. Get your selection tool and just kind of squash this down into a flat oval. And you're going to put it under the shoe like it's a shadow, and then go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. That way it's just underneath the shoe and you don't see it anywhere else. Then on the transparency, change it to multiply, because we are going to put a background color around this. Before I do that, I'm going to unlock all my layers and select everything and just center it to my page a little better. All right, that looks better. Then on my color layer, I'm going to draw a big rectangle. This is just going to be the background color of my shoe drawing. Send to back, and I'm going to change that to a different gradient. I want a linear gradient instead of radial, and I'm going to change the color. So click in that first circle, and I'm going to get kind of a blue color. Then I'm going to go to the first color stop and change that to kind of a greenish yellow color. And then finally, I want to change the angle of that so it's not left to right. I want it up to down. So I'm going to change the rotation thing there to 90 degrees. And that looks pretty good. All right, so now we're going to add the Converse logo. So I gave you a JPEG of that. I want you to go to File, Open, and find the Converse logo that I gave you, and open that in a new document. You are going to click on it with the selection tool and go to the top and click on Image Trace, and then click Expand. Then go to Object and say Ungroup. Now get your direct selection tool and click on the corner of that white box and press Delete twice to get rid of it. Now select the whole thing and drag it over into the dark gray area away from the white outline. The direct selection tool and click on the star and say Select Same Fill Color. Have all the black parts, you're going to click and drag that over to the other side of your artboard, and then select everything that's white and delete it. Now let's go back over to the black thing and let's select it all, and you can make it a little smaller. Now you're going to go up, let's zoom in a little bit, go to your color tablet or color tab and go to RGB. Select RGB. And then you're going to choose like a dark blue fill. And now we want the words to be white. So get the selection tool and hold the Shift key so that you're only selecting the letters. Click on them one at a time. And then make those red. Now I'm going to make a white circle in the back. I'm going to get the circle tool. I'm going to go in the center and hold the Shift key and the Alt or Option key in the very center and drag out a circle. I'm going to make it white. And then go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. And then you can get your selection tool and kind of make the circle smaller so it fits closer to those stitch areas. And then select all of it and go Object, Group. And then copy it. And then let's go to the very top layer on your shoe file, Shadows, and do Paste, Control V. And then just go ahead and shrink it down to be a little bit smaller. and place it on the side of your shoe. And that's it. I hope you try some other graphic variations as well.